We can get started. Well, welcome everyone. Happy Monday. Welcome to From Blight to Bright Futures, Unlocking Career Pathways with EPA's Brownfields Job Training Program. We're really excited to be speaking with you today about this really exciting program that has meant success for so many different grantees. And we're hoping that more entities know about this exciting program and the impact that it can have on so many lives. So let's get started here today and start with our agenda. So we're going to get to know each other, do some introductions, and then my colleague Jackie from EPA is going to do an overview of the Brownfields Job Training Program. And we're going to hear throughout this presentation, we are actually going to hear from two grantees, Los Angeles Conservation Corps and Richmond BUILD. After we do a little bit of an overview, I'm going to talk to you about what it means to draft a compelling grant application, go over some tips and best practices, and then again, we're going to hear from our grantees about successes that they've had and approaches that they've taken for success. And then we're going to go over some critical next steps as you prepare for the release of the fiscal year 2026 RFA. Anticipated sometime this month. And then we are going to wrap things up with a little discussion and Q&A. So throughout this presentation, if you have a question, pop it into the questions box or the chat. My colleague is Devin is keeping track of all of that, and we're going to go over all of your questions at the end. So I'm thrilled to introduce our speakers today. My name is Claire Weston. I'm the Senior Programs Manager at the Center for Creative Land Recycling. I'm going to be speaking on and moderating this webinar. Joining me is Jacqueline Ibar she's a Project Officer in the Land Revitalization and Brownfields Division at EPA Region 9. Tamara Walker, Deputy Director and Community Services Employment and Training at the City of Richmond. And Denise Haynes, Senior Program Manager at Los Angeles Conservation Corps. I also want to give a shout out to my colleague Ignacio De Reet and Daniel Moore, who were instrumental in putting this presentation together. Many of you have probably met with Daniel, actually. All right, I'm going to actually at this time pass it to Jackie, and she's going to go over some Brownfields job training overview, purpose and success, and some other topics. You can take it away, Jackie.
Hi, everyone. So as Claire said, I'm Jacqueline. I'm here in EPA Region 9, and more recently I've been introduced to the job training world. And I'll be covering just an overview of Brownfields and more specifically the job training program. So overall, the Brownfields program in EPA is designed to help fund local governments, nonprofits, community groups, and any other eligible parties overall to assess, clean up, and plan redevelopment of former contaminated lands. So with EPA Brownfields funding, we see revitalization projects take place, such as the revival of mine-scarred lands, cleanup of abandoned buildings, cleanup of dumping sites, and overall, our ultimate goal is to restore land and revitalize the community. So with this job training program, it will focus more on building the local environmental workforce to advance the revitalization of communities that have been affected by brownfields. So the training programs funded by this job training grant typically will include courses that do health and safety, hazardous or solid waste management, and any other skills that could be related to addressing brownfields. And these training programs typically prioritize underemployed and unemployed residents of communities that have been affected by any sort of brownfields or contaminated lands. And then next slide, Claire. So focusing more specifically on the Brownfields job training program, the EPA intends to use this grant to support the creation of full-time, good-paying, and sustainable employment. So this can include students entering into any sort of registered apprenticeship programs or pre-apprenticeship programs. So graduates from these job training programs typically will go on to pursue environmental technician roles, trade jobs, or do further training and education. And so what we've seen from successful job training programs is that they are employer-informed, demand-driven, and linked to ongoing employment opportunities catered to their respective community. So some examples of real-time jobs that students and graduates have taken part in is neighborhood beautification projects, trail and habitat restoration, abatement of lead-based paint, and asbestos in rehab homes. And more recently, the LA wildfires. Some of the students from LACC's job training program were able to help out in that as well. And next slide. So looking more at some of the skills and jobs supported. So when crafting this curriculum in this program, all the eligible trainings must have a direct connection to facilitate either the inventory of brownfield sites, site assessments, brownfield site remediation, community involvement, or site preparation. And the only course we require as a part of obtaining this grant is to have the 40-hour HAZWOPER training. So in this little circle bubble diagram to the right here, that includes a lot of our eligible courses examples. So this could include OSHA 10-hour or 30-hour, emergency planning, preparedness and response, green infrastructure. And usually in site preparation is where we'll see the most flexibility in eligible courses. So those can include revegetation, land surveying, or GIS environmental tech. And so overall, this isn't an exhaustive list. We do recommend working with your EPA regional staff to discuss what courses could be eligible and what courses are strictly ineligible. And just as a disclaimer, once the NOFO for the job training grant comes out for fiscal year 26, EPA staff will be limited on answering some specific questions as to eligible and ineligible courses. And then more specifically, some strictly ineligible courses would be general construction, such as solar installation, carpentry, and life skills training. Next slide, Claire. Okay. And so here's just an overview as to how the budget can be broken down with this grant. So this could include personal costs, which would be fringe benefits for instructors to conduct training or other tasks associated with the programmatic courses, cost for recruiting, so screening and placement of trainings and trainees in the program, any personal costs for caseworkers or other specialists who work with participants to help figure out what barriers there are to employment, and also connecting them with resources and making sure they're supported for future success. Also, any cost for training materials and work gear. So this could be PPE, such as hard hats, safety vests, and steel-toed boots. Participant support costs. So this would include stipends for trainees who are going to the courses consistently, for transportation, any childcare subsidies. So any sort of incentive to have trainees stay within the program and complete the full training. Also not listed on here would be any potential travel that would be related to the development of the program. So later on this year, we have the National Brownfields Conference, and we should be having a lot of job trainee grantees attend. So that would be a good chance to connect one-on-one and just talk with how different programs are set up and just share that knowledge to make sure it's just accessible and get more introduced into the job training world. Next slide, Claire. And so some of the application info is that applicants can apply for up to $500,000. The overall project period is for 5 years, and applicants aren't tied to this deadline. They can complete the grant in less than 5 years if they so choose. And the NOFO for this upcoming cycle of the fiscal year 2026 should be releasing later this month. And once it is released, it will remain open for 60 calendar days from then. And also, just as a disclaimer again, once it's released, the EPA staff will be a little bit more limited as to answering some of the questions, like which eligible courses, just because that's a bit of a restriction once the NOFO is out. And so on the right side, we have a timeline of generally what to expect. So in the winter, we see potential applicants gear up to apply. So they'll be reaching out to EPA regional staff for any questions and any sort of resources. In the spring is where we'll see applicants actually apply for the grant. The NOFO is released and then open for 60 days. And then in the fall is when the award selection happens, and typically funding will become available in the following spring. And then as another disclaimer is just that all the information provided in this webinar is based off the fiscal year 2025 job training solicitation. So there could be a few changes in the new one that's going to come out later this month, but EPA will provide a summary of changes on the Brownfields job training website once the fiscal year 26 NOFO is out. Next slide, Claire. Okay. And then we really want to stress to applicants the importance of meeting the threshold requirements in the job training application. So this is the first hurdle before your application is really looked at in depth. So just make sure you meet all these requirements so that your application can advance to be analyzed further. So responses to each item below are required and must be included as an attachment in the narrative portion. So I'll just go over a few of the key ones. Applicant eligibility, the coalition agreement. Just a note here, coalitions are not required when applying for this grant. This, if an applicant is applying as a coalition, there will need to be a coalition agreement already in place upon submitting the application, but however, they're not required. And applications that do apply as a coalition are not necessarily graded higher or anything. It's just if it makes sense for your community and your workforce development. If it makes sense to be in a coalition, then you would go about that process. Also, the demonstration that a proposed project doesn't copy or duplicate any sort of other federally funded environmental job training programs. So this could include the National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences or the Department of Labor. Just make sure your program is tailored to your own community needs and isn't a duplicate of another. Also the estimated project period and federal funds requested, the training curriculum chart, make sure to include the cost of each course, target area, any previous funding requirement, and expenditure of existing Brownfields job training grant funds. And then as a note, it's very important if one of the threshold criteria for some reason does not apply to you, please do not skip it. Just affirm for that section that it does not apply to you, and then you can move on to the next question. So during this application process, we do encourage applicants to check out CCLEAR's application elements and requirements checklist to make sure they're hitting all the points upon submitting. And then that's all I had for the overview. I can pass back to you, Claire, if you want to introduce Denise or Tamara, my bad.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jackie. That's a great overview. Lots of information in those slides, which yes, you will be receiving these slides in a follow-up email as well as the recording. So don't worry about furiously taking notes. I know it's challenging. So now we're going to hear from our grantee speakers, Los Angeles Conservation Corps and Richmond BUILD. In preparing these slides, we asked them to consider these three questions. Why did you elect to apply for the Brownfields Job Training Grant? What was the need in your community and how did you demonstrate that need, including who are you targeting? And what has your success been, such as placement rate, types of jobs, etc. So we're going to hear from Tamara first from Richmond BUILD. And Tamara, just let me know when you'd like to advance slides and I will do so for you.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. I just want to do a disclaimer. I have a slight cold, so I'm I might be a little harsh or hoarse or coughing. So I've taken something to try to make sure to kind of mitigate that. But so Richmond BUILD is a City of Richmond training program. So I just want to start off by saying we're kind of unique because we are a part of a city government. What that means is that we also receive WIOA funds. So we have access to other employment and training programs to support our candidates. We have relationships with other departments that are working with Brownsfield. So we are kind of a unique organization. And then also, I think the bigger piece is that we have what we call a business opportunity ordinance, which means that if any any contractor works in the city of Richmond and they have to hire staff to do the work, 25% of the staff have to be Richmond residents, which means any organization that's doing this work, they have to call us first and hire our graduates. So I think I just wanted to, just to actually, put that on the table for you all to know how we're able to do the work efficiently and the partnerships that we have. So we have a workforce development board that works with employers. Then we have the city of Richmond, who's actually doing this work, that we have what some would call a PLA agreement, but we call it a business opportunity ordinance. So I just wanted to put that on the table before we even started. So one of the things in Richmond, to address the question of why did we decide to apply for the grant? One was because there's over 1,000 areas in Richmond that have hazardous sites. Just because we are a, Chevron is here, and so we have all of these other refineries here and things like that. So next slide. Again, why was there a need? Unemployed, underemployed, and low-wage residents between the ages of 18 and 24, particularly those who lived in the affected brownfield sites. Education, it was an education focus, individuals without access to traditional higher education, but motivated to gain practical skills and stable employment. And then it was evidence-based. We needed the work done. As you can see the lady here standing saying no Zeneca toxic waste dumping in Richmond. So those are one of the reasons why we chose to apply for the grant. Next slide. Our program success and outcomes. So as it stands right now, we have 40% plus placement. We've trained over 352 hours, and we've done 3 hazardous sites. Next slide.
Thank you, Tamara. So we're actually going to hear from Tamara again later on in the presentation. We're kind of breaking up comments from our grantees. So I'm actually going to pass it now to our second grantee from Los Angeles Conservation Corps, Denise. And Denise, just let me know when you'd like me to advance the slide for you.
Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Denise. I'm with the LA Conservation Corps. We are a nonprofit organization that serves young adults between the ages of 18 to 26, providing them a second chance at work experience, earning their high school diploma, and just overall environmental trainings and some career pathways. So the LA Conservation Corps, the reason why we applied for the grant, and we've been awarded multiple times for over 15 years, this training is very beneficial to the population that we serve. It basically helps them with the workforce, because we recruit these young men and women in hopes of them getting job placement, moving on to something better for themselves. So this is a great opportunity, in a sense, for them to get work in this field, because they live in the communities that have a lot of different brownfield sites here in the city of Los Angeles. That's the community needs. Okay. So our targeted population, like I said, is young adults that are either unemployed or underemployed, dislocated workers. And most of them, they come from the city of Los Angeles and in our surrounding cities. So our focus basically with LA Conservation Corps is providing opportunities for the workforce, for the youth, because they get an opportunity to work with the Corps, but we also want to move them on to something better. Next slide. As I mentioned, LA Conservation Corps, like I said, we've been awarded multiple times, and our success with the EPA Brownsfield grant, we've trained over 500. I think our number, at least we probably hit the 800 mark of serving individuals. Our placement rate usually is about 75 to about 90%. I'm currently have two active Brownsfield grants that we're working on. And our placement rate, I have an advisory board who a lot of different environmental companies, training providers, workforce centers actually sit on this board, who also helps us with jobs and with trainings. So our success, I think it has been great.
Thank you, Denise. I'm thinking we are doing really well on time, so I'd love to kind of take a break from all of the stats and all of the details about how this program works, and just focus maybe a little bit on the human element. So not to put you guys on the spot, but Tamara, Denise, I'm wondering if you have just a personal story, maybe an interaction with a trainee, or some specific story or anecdote that really moved you, that you found really inspirational in your time working under this program. Sorry to put you on the spot, but I'd love to just hear what kind of experience you have with those, just that really human element of this program, because it is very inspirational.
I can start just by saying that I started here in 1995, and then I left, and I've only been back. I left in 2004, and I've been back since 2022. However, I know that when I came back, I've seen young people who have went through this program who are now employed in abatement in the city of Richmond, who are employed at the port doing this work. So again, I think these are what the outcomes are for these programs, especially working in a city, which, high wages, benefits, union. So all of these things come from us being able, and again, I have to speak to us being a city department, how we're able to fill positions in the city with the participants who are in our programs. Of course, it's in our public works section, because public works, they really use us or utilize our young people or young adults for projects that they may have. So again, it's that opportunity for them to get the experience, get the training, and then follow up with employment.
Awesome, thank you. What about you, Denise? Do you have a story that's sort of close to your heart in your time working?
I have multiple. I actually oversee our vocational trainings here at the LA Conservation Corps. So I also run our Youth Build program, which is a construction based program, along with the Brownsfield job trainings. So a lot of our youth that comes, to us, that joins us, they come from all different walks of life, whether they're probation, or in foster care, or they were high school dropouts, and so on. It's a joy to see them come in and not really knowing what they want to do, what their next steps are, and to be having certain programs like the Brownsfield Job Training Program or a Youth Build construction program. Having those things in place in your organization, I think is beneficial, and it enlightens them. And you see them, come in and kind of be standoffish and not really engaging, but as time go and they get through the trainings and you see them open up, and then when the job opportunities come along, you see that change, and you see that they're sustaining themselves. We do a year follow-up with them after they complete our trainings. We reach out to them on a monthly basis, see if they're still working and so on. And just to know that they are still employed and still pushing through, that keeps me going. I've been doing this type of work since 2007. I've been at the Corps since 2000. So yeah, it's been great. Programs like this are very beneficial to the communities that we serve. So.
Amazing.
And-
Thank you both. I thought, oh, go ahead. Is there a
No,
follow-up?
and I know that the LA Conservation Corps, they also bring back those who have graduated and who are working to speak to the next cohort. I think that's huge to allow those, those who have graduated to come back and let them tell their story, because a lot of times, people think that our story is different, that, people will not understand my story, but to have a young person or a young adult come back and tell my story, and then show them that it can be done if you just follow through with the project, with the program, right? That the staff are here to help you succeed, no matter what the background is. And I think that that's really good for these type of programs, because we too also run a youth build program and a Richmond build program. So having those programs together allows young people to see that doesn't matter what your background is, if you're willing and ready to make a change, we're here, and this program is one opportunity that can help you get to that next level.
Amazing. And that what you said just now, Tamara, really resonated with some of the things we're going to be talking about later in this presentation, because that to me speaks to retention strategies, right? So in your application, you are going to need to articulate your methods of retaining these trainees in your program, and that's sort of what I would maybe describe as alumni engagement, or maybe some mentoring services. That sounds like a really good way to retain those trainees and keep them really focused on the program. So we're going to talk more about that. Okay. Thank you both. Let's jump in then to the grant app. So drafting your grant application. So one of the key elements that we want to talk about first is demonstrating need. So both Tamara and Denise talked about the need in their community. And so one of the foundational elements of your grant application is demonstrating that need. So two questions that you should be asking yourself if you're thinking about applying for a Brownfields job training grant. Why are you doing this, and who are you doing this for? I know those sound like simple questions, but really, really think about it. Make a list, bring your team together, brainstorm, really think about why you're doing this and who you're doing it for. And in responding to those questions, your responses to these questions really define, oh gosh, at least 50% of your application. So really think it through. So the why, responding to the why, that means identifying and describing the need using data. We're going to talk more about that. So why is this training important for your community? And what environmental challenges does your community face? Supporting that narrative with quantitative data. And sharing findings from your labor market study and how those findings have informed your curriculum development. The labor market study is a webinar in and of itself. So if you want to learn more about the labor market study, I encourage you to watch this national webinar, Strategies for Successful Brownfields Job Training Programs. This is a national webinar presented a little over a month ago. Go watch this to really delve into the labor market study. In terms of how to respond to the question about who are you doing this for? This means identifying and describing your target area using demographic data. There's that data term again. And really thinking specifically about who you're targeting, whether that might be unemployed individuals, formerly incarcerated persons, veterans, youth, really thinking about who is needing this training in your community. Okay, so let's dive a little bit deeper into the data portion here. I've highlighted, this is broken up into two slides. I've highlighted the ones that are just so central to your application. So crafting a compelling application means using data to tell your story, sort of a show, don't tell mentality. One of the things you'll notice in these couple slides is that If you're familiar with the Brownfields Job Training RFA, past RFAs, they would have mentioned CGEST and EJ Screen as data platforms to utilize for collecting or gathering data to support your narrative. Those platforms have been taken down, so you will want to use other data sources to collect data, but that's why we assembled this table for you. And I think Devin actually put in the chat another resource that CCLR developed recently called Using Data to Make Your Case. Okay, so you can take a look at that, get some ideas about data platforms to utilize here. So I just want to also highlight or actually request of you all, as we kind of continue through this presentation, what data sources have you used to articulate need in your community? Not necessarily for the Brownfields Job Training Grant, just for any grant or for any presentation that you have to put together for your board, or what have you. What data sources do you use to tell your story, and why did you elect to use that platform or data source? We'd love to get some dialogue going in the chat, so let us know what you've leveraged in the past. Okay. So I've listed some, I won't read them out, but some data types that we've identified is demographic data to demonstrate community needs. You'll need that. Data on overburdened and sensitive populations. You'll certainly need that. And then on this next slide, we've got our labor market data. Again, relates to your labor market study, which is critical. So that's why I've highlighted it in green. And I also want to really point to this bold section here, interviews with employers. We're going to circle back to the employer engagement later on in this presentation. And then your fourth data set that I want to highlight here is your environmental challenges and other vulnerabilities. This is kind of a grab bag of a bunch of different stuff, but we wanted to highlight some of these other sources a little bit more out of the box. Okay. And great, I see there is some Cal virus screen. Great one. Yes, good one. If you're in California, that's a great platform to utilize. Okay. All right. So use data. Next, your training description. So remember what Jackie said, courses have to have a direct connection to brownfield remediation and cleanup activities. So when you're drafting your grant application, you will need to provide a training description, and this is going to include a training program table. And remember what we mentioned earlier on, that you need to include in this training table the cost of the course per cohort, the total course cost, and the % of the grant budget. This is really crucial. It's actually one of the threshold criteria. So be very, very careful not to miss this one. I have here an example of a little snippet of a training program table, which does include the course description directly in the table. That is not required. You do need to describe your course description, but it doesn't necessarily have to be in the table if that's really throwing off your formatting. So I just wanted to highlight that there. That said, we do very much encourage the use of the sampling training table provided in the guidelines. It just makes it so much easier for you and for reviewers to make sure that you're covering everything, okay? So I would not deviate that, and check your math. We're going to talk more a little bit about making sure your math is correct in all your various tables in your application, okay? Okay, program structure. So this is really, what are you going to accomplish in your program, right? So the program structure basically follows 3 basic parts. Okay, your recruitment, screening, and retention of students. So that's the question: how will your organization ensure prospective students of the program are successful, right? How are you going to find them? How are you going to screen them? And how are you going to keep them engaged? Then there's program support for job placement. So how will your organization assist graduates with initial job placement? That does include employer engagement. We're going to talk about that. And your program sustainability. How will your organization ensure that the job training program will continue once grant funds are exhausted? So a key element in describing your program is discussing your outputs and outcomes. Okay, so there's a lengthy definition really, of what outputs and outcomes means to EPA. But the summary version: outputs, activity, efforts, work products. So basically the things, the tangible things that you're going to do. That might include students enrolled, anticipated graduates, number of certifications earned, including maybe HAZWOPER, average wages. These are all things that you can report in your grant applications, like we're going to do X number of these courses, right? Those are your outputs. They need to be measurable within the project period. That's important. You should consider using a table to outline your outputs. It makes it easier to update and refine, trust me. Your outcomes are the results, effects, or consequences of performing said outputs. Okay, so this many courses means we're going to increase capacity of residents, of communities to take advantage of jobs in the brownfield reuse sector, or improve community involvement, or stimulate effective partnerships. XYZ are going to stimulate, increase capacity in these areas. Okay, so those are your outcomes. They do not need to be measurable in the project period necessarily, but they do need to be measurable. One thing I want to make sure you all understand is that you should be purposeful and realistic with the outputs you propose in your applications, because should you be awarded the grant, those outputs will effectively become your deliverables in your negotiated work plan. So you'll need to report on your progress attaining those output goals. So don't overstretch yourself if it's not realistic that you'll actually be able to commit to those outputs that you put into your application. And then for recruitment, screening, and retention of students, program support for job placement, and program sustainability, consider how much of these elements relate to your partnerships. And that's sort of my setup for the next slide here, which is on cultivating partnerships. Okay, so who is at the table? Developing partnerships is so fundamental to crafting an effective and competitive Brownfields job training grant. Okay, so what type of employers might be at the table? Okay, so there might be a coalition member. Again, being part of a coalition is totally optional, but if you are part of a coalition, that's an obviously member at your table. Environmental entities, including MARC recipients in your community, city and county departments. Remember what Tamara was speaking about that really tight, solid relationship with the city of Richmond. Okay, that is an important stakeholder at the table. Job readiness and life skill entities. So maybe GED prep institutions, substance abuse counselors, one-stop centers, workforce development boards, any of those that you might partner with. And then you've got your community-based partners. Okay, so that might be community leaders, faith-based organizations, block clubs, social service providers. And then finally, you've got your employers. And these are your local businesses, your environmental or contractors, your labor unions. So you're going to be wanting to partner with entities from each of these groups, right? Because they all serve a purpose in supporting this program. And so what that means is you are going to get a letter from each identified partner stating their commitments to the program. And what I really want to highlight on that front is that it's really, really crucial that your letters be tailored and specific to specific commitments that these partners are going to, or that these partners are making, right? So notice the terminology here. Many times grant applications will ask, grant RFAs will ask for letters of support. These are not letters of support. These are more specific than that. These have greater weight than that. These are letters of commitment. So they should be tailored and specific, which means they will take a moment to iron out. So we're going to talk about that in the next steps. But watch for that. And the other point I just wanted to make about partnerships is really think carefully about how each of these partners connects to different elements of your grant application, right? So for example, Environmental entities like city and county environmental departments, think about how they might support placement, okay? Solid, fruitful partnerships with the city can create a pipeline for work as the city identifies brownfield cleanup and redevelopment projects. Think about what Tamara was saying. That's crucial to the success of their program. So another example, entities that support readiness, job readiness, and life skills. Okay, they might support retention. Okay, we talked a little bit about that when we mentioned the power of alumni engagement and mentoring. So providing some of these wraparound services, such as counseling, stipends. Some of these wraparound services are really critical to success because they allow trainees to focus on completing the training and really like doing the work, right? So that's really critical for keeping the trainees engaged. And then finally, the community-facing entities, they might be really critical for recruitment. They know the community, they're in the community, they are interfacing with the community every day. So they know how to recruit potential trainees that you want to target based on the need in your community. So they can help support really effective recruitment strategies. So just think about that as you're writing your narrative about how all of your partners influence each of your other sections on when you're articulating those pieces of your application. I do want to really emphasize the piece on employer engagement, or excuse me, cultivating partnerships, specifically employer engagement. And that is, it's a really critical component here. So engaging employers early means helps you understand labor market demand. Remember, I bolded that section in the data table and mentioned, like, we're going to come back to this, those employer interviews, understanding labor market demand. Have in the interviews with employers to understand need in the community. Have them help shape the curriculum, outline their involvement and commitments in those partnership letters. Again, specific partnership letters. In terms of engaging employers, you're going to want to maybe do some focus groups, employer interviews, maybe consider incentivizing employers, incentivizing their meaningful participation, and maybe host some employer-led workshops and site visits. Just really keep them engaged throughout the process. They are your partner, right? Okay. Budget. Developing your budget. It's obviously a really critical part. There is an example budget table provided here in the slide. You'll notice that instruction and training is highlighted. I did that because I wanted to really draw attention to the fact that allocating budget towards actual training is viewed more favorably when EPA is scoring your grant application. So you really want to be focusing on that. Okay, and making sure that that column has the majority of your funds. Okay, that'll be viewed more favorably. Some other tips: set aside funding for support placement and tracking. That's key. Use the provided budget template. Just always use the template. That's my advice to you. You can modify as necessary, but if you are going to modify, I would first take a look at other grant examples, other Brownfields job training grant examples, and see how they structured and formatted their budgets. And don't do anything too novel, because you really want to kind of stick to the template that's provided. You do need to include a budget narrative, and you do need to show your calculations. So, for example, student safety equipment for 100 students at a cost of $50 each for a total of $5,000. That's your equation. That's how you got to that $5,000 figure. You do need to include your calculations, your reasoning for each budget item. Okay. Familiarize yourself with participant support cost guidance. That's also critical, because participant support costs will likely make up a pretty sizable chunk of your budget, but it should not be more than 40%. That's key. Okay. And then note that administrative costs are restricted to 5% of the total award for this grant type. When I first put together this presentation, I didn't have this slide, and then I had my colleague Ignacio look it over, and he added it. I think it's just like the best addition. So we've titled it Table Manners, sort of a pun, right? So there are a lot of tables and charts that you have the opportunity to use in this grant application, and I really encourage you to use them. So we've got a list provided here of the different tables and charts, including a table on demographic information, the training program table. That one is required. It is a part of threshold. Your budget table, of course, an outputs table, your partnerships table, leveraged funding, and then as an attachment, your milestone schedule. Tables are great. They break up your narrative, which is going to be pretty text heavy, don't get me wrong, and it just delivers EPA the information in the way that EPA is used to reading it, which is what you want. You want this application to be easy to read, frankly. So use tables. That's my recommendation. And check your math. Always check your math. I like to make all my tables in Excel or Google Sheets. So you can utilize the formula functions and then paste the linked table into your narrative. Then you just update the table in Excel or Google Sheets and it will update in your narrative. Okay, so you don't have to worry about numbers in different places and getting confused. Common challenges and pain points, and then I'm gonna stop for a little bit and hear from our grantees again. So common challenges and pain points. I think you can probably guess some of these based on what I've talked about. So a really common one is meeting threshold, and the pain point is that applicants don't meet the threshold criteria. So tips for avoiding that pitfall is read the RFA, read it twice, read it three times. Really get comfortable with everything outlined in the RFA. I know it's long. It really is worth it to fully understand what is being asked of you. Utilize CClear's Brownfield Job Training Application Elements and Requirements checklist. This is new. It has not been released yet, and we're not going to release it until the new RFA is released, but watch for that. That can really help you. In fact, I would print the whole thing out and just put it on my wall. That's what I would do. And as Jackie mentioned, respond to threshold criteria questions, even if it doesn't apply to you. Just say it doesn't apply to you. Do not skip it. There are 10 threshold questions. You should have them numbered. There should be 10. If you got 9 or 8, go back, you've done it wrong. So make sure you got 10. Labor market study. This one's also huge. Applicants often don't provide enough data. And applicants don't often detail their methods or results used to conduct the labor market assessment. So especially that second bullet, you will be evaluated on the methods used to conduct your labor market assessment. So make sure you're describing that because if you don't, you will lose points in that section. So tips, utilize data sources beyond baseline employment data, that's key, and clearly outline your methods. It's 5 points, but every point counts, okay? Employer engagement. Applicants don't connect with employers early enough sometimes, and partnerships lack detail. So tips for success here, engage them early and really make your partnership letters specific. That means start your partnership letters now and really find ways to help your partners give you enough detail so that these partnership letters are really checking that box. Okay, I think that's the end of my section. So now we're going to hear a little bit more from our grantee speakers. So these are 3 more questions that we asked them for this section. What does your curriculum look like? How did you cultivate productive partnerships with relevant entities? And what challenges or pain points did you encounter and how did you overcome them? So first, we're going to hear from Tamara. Okay, take it away, Tamara.
Thank you. I did want to add a couple of things about your labor market information. How do you actually get that labor market information? There's a website that that a lot of the work, again, because we are a workforce system, we have access to, specific labor market information, but the Center of Excellence, you can find their website online, EDD, their labor market information. So those are kind of the resources that we use to obtain our labor market information. Again, so back to the comprehensive curriculum. So we do the HASWAPR, we do the OSHA, the OSCAR, the OSCA, the confined space. We added asbestos and lead abatement just because we are trying to make sure that our participants are as marketable as possible and expanding the variations of opportunities that we can provide for our participants as in the way of a job. Our technical training is environmental sampling, site cleanup procedures, green building practices, and EV charging infrastructure. We did have solar, but we know that the next application will not include solar, so didn't want to add it here. We have our own site that has two very large warehouses in them, so that we can do a lot of the work on site. So our youth build and our Richmond build program is in there. We partner with LACC for anyone who needs the academic support. For our youth build, we do have our own school that's located at our site. Other curriculum, CPR, it's not listed, but we do have CPR training for our participants as well. Next slide. So our disaster response preparedness, so emergency response, rapid deployment capabilities, because again, we want to make sure that our participants are as trained as possible. So one of the concepts that we try to develop and that we're still developing is that the city will utilize our participants to really clean up all of the areas, not just a few, but we're actually looking at how do we work with our city to actually pay the students then more so than the contractors. So we will be looking at that at our next iteration to make sure that they're being paid, not just a stipend, but they're actually being paid a wage. One of the things that we are our own employer of record. So we've done it, we do it for all of our programs. We have a very large internship program. So we employ about 700 to 800 young people a year. So again, we are our own employer of record. We are self-insured. So that again sets us up to be a site that the city can use to actually do more of the Brownsfield work and actually pay our participants. We try to make sure that any work that they do, that they're actually getting paid a wage. And it's the wage that the city offers. We do hazardous material and site remediation. One of the new projects that we have right now is we're working with one of our housing authority developments that needs a bunch of their units cleaned. And we do know that there's lead, and we do know that there's some asbestos in it. So we're working with them to make sure that our team can get in and clean. Again, this is for training for us. So they've outlined two, or I'll say two apartments, but one duplex for us to practice on. So again, we're utilizing our City of Richmond resources to actually get this work done and make sure that our participants are well trained and are very marketable and employable. Next slide. So again, our strategic partnerships. City of Richmond, we have access to over 400 contractors that the city works with. So one of the things that we do, we send out a list to those contractors and say, hey, we have a new program starting. We kind of update them on what we're doing. We allow them to come and talk to the students about the work that they're doing. Sometimes they will provide some of the training. So Marine Clean Energy, which was our solar installation, was one of the organizations that come in and they talk about, solar and all of the things that are along with solar, like what are the benefits, what are the tax breaks. So again, we won't be having it in our new one, but when we apply this year, but we have had it in the past. Because we are a workforce investment board and we have an AJCC, we are able to work with our graduates and sending them to another facility, which is located, just down the street, to meet with one of our case managers here to identify other opportunities of employment that we may have that they have not heard of. We have other tools that are given to us as a workforce board to be able to identify employment opportunities in a specific area, in a specific field, and we can find out who's hiring. We can find out who to contact through this system that we have. And then working with our organizations, our community organizations. So the city has adopted what is called the Richmond Green Blue New Deal. So again, it identifies projects and things that the city has targeted as areas that they want cleaned. That's it's 21 projects that they're trying to for just transition. So again, this is another opportunity for our partners to partner with us and our young people in our program. Next slide. Again, what you see is one of the housing authority projects that the students are working on. We were able to partner with the California for All Youth, and the graduates were able to graduate and work on this project, and we were able to pay them a wage, give them 500 hours of a salary so that they can get the experience and then move them into job placement. So the challenges that we have in Richmond, and they probably have the same challenges in Los Angeles, is territorial issues where young people can go. Especially if we have justice involved. We don't have gangs, but what we have is like sections of the city where young people don't feel comfortable going. So I think that was one of our biggest, challenges is where we're located, making sure that young people feel comfortable coming over to that side of town. So again, we partner with other programs in the city that will be able to serve them. Housing, of course, housing is very expensive out here. So, we're able to provide some support through other funding around helping them find housing, helping them pay their first month's rent. If they find a place, we're able to help them with their deposits utilizing another program that we have. Case management is always important for us, making sure that we have the services that we need. We partner with another program that will pay for childcare. So again, we have all these other supports because we are a workforce area. We are a workforce board. And then of course the stipends. We definitely believe in stipends because you're asking people to participate in a job training program where they're not getting any money, right? But the outcome is great. However, we live in a microwave society. Young people want what they want right now. So we can't, it's kind of hard for us not to expect someone to participate in a program for 3 to 4 months and get no money where they can go to another job and get paid instantly. It may not be a great job, but you have money in hand. So again, making sure that we have those stipends are very, very important for us. And then also, one of the things that we have allowed in our program is graduates to come back and assist the next cohort, and we pay them. So we give them that experience. Again, it's really about making sure that they are very marketable. so that they can put on their resume, what have I actually done? What work will make me stand out in this field. So I think those are the things that we've done to overcome some of the challenges that we have.
Excellent. Thank you, Tamara, very much. And now, oh, wait, you have one more.
Oh, sorry. Which one is this one? I forgot what question this was.
Sort of your wrap-up slide, if you want to just give
Okay. So again, I talked about the Richmond Green Blue New Deal. So we are very heavily involved in the Richmond Green Blue New Deal because the Richmond Green Blue New Deal has a workforce component to each one of the projects. And any one of our participants who graduate from the program can actually participate in the projects, and they're paid projects. So again, it's really all about making sure that those who leave our program, they are actually going into a paid employment opportunity. So again, with this project, there's economic development. And when I talk about economic development, I talk about young people who don't see a future for themselves, right? The ability to actually make a $30 or $40 job once they finish this project. We are heavily involved with the unions. We have an MOU with the unions to hire our participants once they graduate, if they can pass. Some require a test, some do not. And then the environmental justice piece of it. Again, Richmond has the Richmond Green Blue New Deal, which is how we are addressing environmental justice. And then I think the last and I think the most important part for such a small city as us is the city revitalization. We have areas that need to be cleaned so that we can bring in more businesses in the community, especially those that are high wage, high growth opportunities, so that we can revive our community. And then young people have an opportunity to feel good about where they live, what they have done. They can pass by and say, you know what, because of what we did, we now have this business here that has offered 30 to 40 opportunities or job opportunities, or even 5 or 10. But again, it's really about making sure that, the young people here and the young people that participate in this program, that they feel good about what they've done, and that they feel good about their community, and that they can support their family. And I think that's the most critical piece of everything that we do.
Yes, well said. Thank you so much, Tamara. And Denise, let you add on to that and share some of your stuff.
So with our curriculum, I actually work with a union. It's called Heat and Frost Asbestos Union. And we tailor our trainings around the prerequisite of that union. So they have been our training providers for over 15 years. And it's been kind of a bridge into their union with our young people. So it kind of works great. So we tailor our training. We have the HAZWOPER, the asbestos, the lead. We do OSHA 10 and 30, first aid CPR, confined space, mold remediation work. And then we also provide them with the TWIC card, which is the transportation worker. It's a credential card where they are able to work on federal restricted areas, like docks and shipyards, and even at airports. So it's a great opportunity for the young men and women to have that, because they get a clearance to work in, like I said, different areas, federal restricted areas. Our partners. So like I mentioned, LA Conservation Corps, we've been around since the late 80s. So this agency has multiple different entities of things that we get involved with in the environment in the community. So we have established advisory board for our vocational training program. And our advisory board is basically a mix of, like I said before, trainers, employers, workforce centers, American Job Centers. So a series of different entities from different agencies that can bring some form of a resource. And a lot of times, you know, these individuals that sit on our board, they're providing us guidance on what's the trends out there, what's coming out, what we should change, what we should keep. And it's beneficial. It's very beneficial to have that in place. And we also do an employment engagement once a month, where their employers come out, and if you know if they have opportunities or they're getting ready to open up and have opportunities, it give our participants an opportunity to apply and kind of be exposed before the public gets before the public gets those jobs. They get first pick, I should say, for applying for those jobs. So I think the key, and if you're going to go for this type of funding, you want to make sure you have great partnerships and that that it's a buy-in, and what you're trying to accomplish and what you're trying to do with your programming. You want to have great partners. Next slide. Overcoming challenges. For me, like I said, I've been doing this for so long. The only challenge that I experienced in this was during the pandemic, doing in-person trainings for multiple years and then have to come to a halt. And you have a cohort going, and no one's prepared. No one, what do we do? They can't provide service for us. We can't provide the service to the youth because of, all the restrictions. And so that was a challenge for us, and how we were going to get them, trained, so they can continue, the training. We didn't want to lose anybody, that was just a real tough time period for us during our training. So what I've learned is have a backup plan. Make sure you have a backup plan when you are creating your curriculum, how you're going to run your program. Make sure you have a backup plan, and work with other, and find other entities that's willing to provide online if need be for your training. Have those for a backup plan, legit online training providers. My wrap up with this, like I mentioned, LA Conservation Corps, our goal basically is to help, young adults find their way out of school, young adults who are looking for that second chance of getting their diploma, who's looking for work experience. So with that, our job is to, to provide that for them, to support, and the community, like with the city of Los Angeles, the county of Los Angeles, we receive a lot of different funding from those entities who help us provide where we can do street cleanups and maintenance works in the street. And we were fortunate enough, first of the year we had fires here in Southern California, where we had the opportunity through the training that we provided with our Brownfields job training, the HAZWAPER. A lot of our young people got an opportunity to work. That was in Altadena and Pacific Palisades. So that was a great opportunity for them to have that experience. They were deployed for like 17 days. They were out there roughing it, and it was a great experience. And it's something that they are going to remember and know that they were part of that to help. That's my wrap up.
Thank you so much, Denise. I appreciate that. And yeah, I do want to really draw attention to the fact that we did have some really devastating fires in California this year. And I think it's likely that this is not the last we've seen of that type of devastation. And so it's really key that to know that these grants can help support some cleanup activities as it relates to these really devastating natural disasters. So, okay, we are going to get to questions in a second. I just want to wrap up some of your next steps if you're going to be applying. Okay, so first things first, do these things as soon as possible. Okay, like today. Register in sam.gov if you're not already registered. Seriously, do this today. Make sure you're clear on why you're doing this and who you're doing it for. Have that meeting with your team if you haven't already. Review your labor market study or leverage a partner's study on labor market data. You could also go that route, or begin collecting any remaining data that will allow you to identify and demonstrate need in your application. Just get your story in order, get your data in order. Make sure you can really demonstrate need clearly in your application, and solidify partnerships and confirm how each partner will be involved. Do these things in the first month. So once the RFA is released, or I mean, you can start now, but do these things as soon as you can in the first month. Open a public comment period, or notify the public that you'll be applying for this grant. This is not necessarily a requirement, but it is mentioned in the rubric. You will be evaluated on your notification of the community of this application. So take note of that, because that kind of thing can take a little bit. Solicit your partnership letters from partners. Again, these need to be fairly specific and detailed on the commitments that are being made. So you might need to go back and forth a couple of times with your partners to really get those partnership letters where you want them, which is why I'm recommending you start on those now. And get your curriculum in order and make sure that your courses are eligible. Just a note, if one of the courses that you propose turns out not to be an eligible course, it's not going to ruin your application. Applications that include ineligible courses will be viewed less favorably, but it's not like EPA is going to throw out your application if you have one course or something that's considered ineligible. So just so you're not totally freaking out on that. And then draft your application. Do that in the first month. You're going to want to refine, you're going to want to revise, you're going to want to edit. So get that done sooner rather than later. And then in your second month, finish drafting your application and send it to us. Send it to the Center for Creative Land Recycling. We provide free application review services, just like, in English class in high school or college, where you give them a paper and they redline edit it and tell you where to improve. We do the same thing. We go through with a rubric and we redline edit it, and we tell you how to improve your application to give you your best shot and to make your grant more competitive. Directions for submission are in the chat and also on the slide, so you'll receive that. So I definitely encourage you to get your application reviewed by CClear, just to give you that little extra confidence that you've really hit all the marks. Okay. We can also help you plan your narrative approach, navigate data platforms, connect you to grantees, provide resources to help you navigate the application process, and as I said, provide that thorough review of your application, including multiple rounds of edits. But you have to get it to us. You have to get your applications to us sooner rather than later, so we can provide those multiple rounds of edits. And it's really the multiple rounds that makes a huge difference. Okay. And now we can jump into questions. All right, we're doing pretty well. We've got about 15 minutes left. And I think we do have a couple questions. So just before we jump in, because I'm actually going to stop sharing my screen so I can see all of our speakers, just want to highlight our last slide. This is how you get in touch with CClear. Again, you will all receive this slide deck as well as the recording and a bunch of other resources as well in a follow-up email, probably within the week. I'm thinking later this week you'll receive that follow-up email. I'll also notify all of you when the RFA is released, okay? And just any little updates like that, so you're the first to know, kind of thing, okay? All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing and we can go over some questions. Let me get oriented here. Okay. So, Jackie, looks like we've got a couple eligibility questions pertaining to tribes. I'm wondering if you can address this. So Kyle's asking, are tribes in Alaska eligible for funding under this program? And Clifton is asking, are tribes in Nevada available and eligible as well under this program? We're working on a tribal-owned travel plaza.
Yes, so to my knowledge, tribes should be eligible. Just looking at the FY25 NOFO, there's a specific section that talks about if your entity is eligible for tribes in if they're federally recognized tribes. For tribes in Alaska, I think there's a bit more specific requirements. So I would look at the fiscal year 25 NOFO, and I think I can put it here in the chat. While I was looking that over, but I would just double check that and then also just read over and make sure those requirements are still the same once the fiscal year 26 NOFO is released later this month for the job training cycle.
Thank you, Jackie. I've got the NOFO in front of me too. I'm going to continue looking while we respond to some questions here. Okay, great. Thank you. And then, oh, thanks, Jackie. So Jackie, looks like you put it in the chat. I don't know. Can you click on that? I'm not sure. If that's...
I'll just link the website and then it should be in there as well.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah.
Okay. Tamara, can you explain how you use EV charging stations in your brownfield training? Oh, you're still on mute.
As you all know, electricians are only the ones that are able to put in charging stations. So one of the things that we, the city of Richmond had a big push for installing charging stations all over the city, specifically in areas in low income areas. As we have a program that will allow people to. We have a grant program for people to purchase EV cars. So the way that we used it was the soil part, checking the soil, digging the ground, because they can't touch the electrical part, because the only people that can put in EV charging stations are those who are electricians. So they did all of the groundwork. So checking the soil, remediating the soil, because again, in the areas where some of the charging stations are placed, there was some brownfield work that needed to be done. So that's how we use it. I mean, they did learn about EV charging stations, but of course they could not actually put them in because only certified electricians have that capability.
Thank you, Erica is asking, we have a large community of undocumented residents. Would they be able to participate in these programs? Jackie, I'll let you answer that. The answer to
that one I'm not super sure of. I haven't asked that question before. I think it depends on the workforce development program that typically is in place for the organizations who will apply for this type of grant.
oh wait, I think I found it. Additionally, a Brownfields, this is the fiscal year 2025 RFA. Additionally, a Brownfields job training participant must be a U.S. citizen and or a green card holder permanently residing in the United States and its territories. I could look into it further, but that's what I'm finding.
Okay. No, thanks for that, Claire. Yeah,
I would that on the next in the new RFA to really pin that down. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
If necessary, are there remedial classes for general education part of the training? How are these paid for? I think that might be a question.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what you mean by remedial. But if this grant is obtained, the only required course that we need to be in the curriculum is the HAZWOPER 40. So other than that, the grantee can have the curriculum full of their own eligible courses and any other courses that are supported through other sources of funding as well. So in terms of remedial classes for general education, I'm not entirely sure. We do have a list of eligible and ineligible courses if you want to help see what could fit your curriculum through what other grantees have asked for in the past. And also that isn't exhaustive. Any course can be brought up to the EPA regional staff and you can talk it over with them if that is an eligible course. Basically, as long as there's a case that you can argue it's furthering the Brownfields program mission in terms of assessing, cleaning up, or preparing sites for redevelopment. Typically those courses will be eligible. It's just once it hits that redevelopment point is where the Brownfields will sort of take its hands off. So I can also provide that link of the eligible and ineligible courses. But yeah, typically curriculums I think are already sort of at least loosely in place through the entity applying. So they'll typically have a format that they're going off of, and then this grant will just be used as supplemental funding to help fund a few more courses that are EPA eligible.
Thank you, Jackie. I did just want to highlight while you were speaking, I was looking through the ineligible uses of grant funds section of the last RFA and found the following bullet. General, this is ineligible. General or life skills, education activities such as remedial classes in math and reading, job readiness training such as developing resumes and acquiring interview skills, GED costs, website development, vehicle or medical insurance. I think this is just an example of why those job readiness partnerships are so critical to your application and developing those partnerships, because they can provide some of those services where you might not be able to, just to really round out your program approach. Okay. Does the course list need to be confirmed when the application is submitted, or can it be refined if awarded and after the award is made?
So once the applications are submitted, you will be graded, I guess, on the curriculum with how everything is formatted. But once an grant is awarded, certainly the curriculum can be edited as long as you talk it over with your EPA project officer to make sure all the courses that are being funded by the grant are eligible courses. So yes, you can definitely rearrange the curriculum after the grant is awarded, but what is sent in upon the application submission is what you will be graded on overall.
One thing that I hadn't mentioned in my presentation, but Jackie just reminded of it, is triple check to make sure that your budget, when you've developed your budget table, matches other components of your application. Like, so for example, your budget will include line items that will include contractors and personnel for the training portion of your program. Then you've got a separate table that talks about the cost of your courses and what percentage each course is of your total budget. Just make sure that those two tables, make sure that they make sense, because sometimes you'll do one portion of your application first and then you'll do another portion of your application later, and you might not go back and edit. So say if you save your budget to the end and then you tweak some things based on circumstances changing, you need to make sure that what's reflected in your budget is accurately reflected throughout the rest of your narrative, including that course budget, right? So just always be thinking about how one area of your application affects another. Okay. I believe, I'm not sure we have any more questions. Any more questions from anybody? We've got about.
Oh, we do have more questions, Claire.
Oh, we do? Oh, goodness me. I'm sorry, I didn't scroll down. See, this is why I can't have so many screens open.
No worries.
Keeping track of what's answered. Thank you, Devin. Please give an overview of how to manage these programs. Management, reporting, pitfalls, etc. Are these one-offs or part of another program that the grantee has?
I can sort of get started on that. We just want to be clear that with this grant, it's typically not enough to fully support an individual workforce development organization. It's typically a supplemental source of funding to help already established organizations that are actively developing their community workforce. So the program management overall is up to the grantee. It's just as their EPA project officer, we do require periodic check-ins. Also, the quarterly reports are the main form of tracking in a system we use called acres. In that you'll report on the number of graduates, number of graduations, number of jobs placed, so that you'll be required to report on at the end of every fiscal quarter. Also, you'll check periodically with the project officer on the curriculum just to make sure the EPA grant funding is going towards eligible courses. I think a pitfall we've seen in some of the job training grantees is just not having enough commitment partners to make sure that they're sustainable on their own, because this grant typically isn't enough to just help support a full workforce development board. So just making sure you do have those committed partners and other sources of funding to make sure your program is running as a whole. And this job training grant is just used to supplement, and that your program will still stay in place after the grant ends as well. So there may be more specific issues that grantees deal in. Yeah, I know like retention of students is something that job training grantees typically face, but I think that's something that workforce development organizations and boards typically have a manner of solving or to keeping track of. So since they're usually already pretty well formed upon applying for this grant, they'll have their own specific solutions based on their community needs for that. So that's a little bit more specific to the grantee and their location and their community.
Thank you, Jackie. This is actually a good one for Tamara and Denise. How much training does a trainee usually need in order to be ready for your prospective employers? And the second part of that question, how many hours a week is a training usually for? Instead of or in addition to stipends, is it possible to arrange part-time employment so the trainees are earning some money while they train?
I can answer. Ours is all day, Monday through Thursday. And Friday is usually for hands-on in the field. So, and it's 12 weeks. I think it's 12 weeks. I think ours is 12 weeks. Can we arrange for them to have part-time employment? It would probably not be unless they work in the evenings, because I think ours is over at like 3:30. So if they want to do employment afterwards, they can. But a lot of times they stay and get help, making sure that they have the concepts. Well, and yeah, so then to answer the other question of how much training, it just depends on the employer and the relationships that you have. But one of the things that we noticed was that, doing a lot of the in-house work and, all of the training, it sometimes doesn't prepare you for the actual hands-on at a job. And so that was why we included the working on the Richmond Housing Authority homes and things like that after the program, where we paid you so that you can get more experience. Because what we were hearing was that even though we felt like we had prepared them, some of them were not prepared and they quit because they just didn't know how hard the work was going to be. So utilizing these other opportunities to get them prepared with the hands-on training every day, going to work, which is what we call just a work experience or internship. We saw the difference from those who didn't have it versus those who did. So again, we would not do the internships if they were not paid. And then also utilizing one of the graduates to come back and work with the next cohort as an assistant. So again, it's really about getting that experience, getting that experience, and getting that experience. So I think that's, it's really based on what the employer asks. A lot of times we talk to employers and say, okay, this person has only had this amount of experience, but they're trainable. Because we are a workforce board, we can offer OJTs, on the job training funds, so we have those opportunities to help kind of mitigate any of that. Oh, I'm not really sure I want to hire them because they don't have the year's worth of experience. And then also, because we have our business ordinance, our business opportunity ordinance, or our PLA. I mean, most people would consider it a PLA about any contractor doing work in the city of Richmond, and the city of Richmond is giving you any type of a discount or some funding. You have to utilize a Richmond residence. And so that's another way we get our participants in, because they have to call Richmond BUILD first.
Anything to add, Denise?
For LA Conservation Corps, our training is a Monday through Friday base, 8-hour days, 7 a.m. to 3:30. We run training between 6 to 7 weeks. And far as finding employers, I know I work with an environmental service who always looking for individual who has that HAZWOPER certification. And so a lot of times when I know that there's some individuals struggling or, need some extra money, he has like weekend work. They can do roundups on the weekend for him, which won't interfere in their training. So, I mean, you just have to look for other entities, other agencies that's willing, to support your programming, support what you're trying to do.
As far as the grant parameters go, Jackie, would it be allowable to structure training so that it's more part-time? Obviously, it would increase the total length of that cohort, but clearly Tamara and Denise have sort of a more full-time model for a shorter period of time. Could you have a part-time model and extend that period of time per the grant parameters?
I think potentially. I personally haven't seen one that is more part-time based from most of the job training grantees. I've seen they're a couple weeks, usually around anywhere like 6 to 12, and it'll be more full-time based, which is why a lot of the stipends are offered. Yeah, so I haven't seen one in place as of yet, but if they're able to be trainers that would only come part-time, and it could be a course developed around part-time work, I think it could be possible. I would just talk with your EPA regional staff about what that would look like.
Thank you. And we can get some more information on that. And that would be a good thing to, if you go to the EPA Brownfields job training website, they have an entire section on the peer learning cohort. It's called the PLC calls, and they've got lots of webinars. Basically every month they have a call, and I bet they have a call on this exact topic about how to structure your course duration and navigating between a full-time or a part-time model. So go check that out, and I'll continue to look into it. We are about 5 minutes over time. We have a couple questions left, and I'm going to try and answer those in a follow-up email to folks. And oh wow, I just see a big one from Deborah. Let's see here. Okay, while I start to do a little wrap up, Jackie, I'm gonna let you read that and maybe respond to it. I can't do two things at the same time. But we are going to be sending a follow-up email with some responses to questions, as well as the recording and the slide deck in full. And we will notify all registrants when the RFA is released, which will include a summary of changes between the FY 2025 RFA and the FY 2026 RFA. So if you've read the FY 2025 RFA and you're wondering how different is the new one, do I have to read the whole thing over again? Yes, you should, but we will provide a summary of changes because we usually get that from EPA. So let's see. Jackie, any quick response for Deborah before we sign off?
Just on the last paragraph.
While you're working on that, Tamara and Denise, not to put you on the spot, would you be available, or would you be, you can just send me a quick yes or no after, but there's some interest clearly from people about connecting with you all to learn more about your program and explore partnering. Is that something that you might be open to? Yeah, okay. All right, we can talk more about that offline, but let's explore that because I think that could be really valuable.
I guess for Deborah, I think she's asking that they're working with another sort of job training program as well, and if this one could still work for them or her organization, and they're still developing it. So anyways, Deborah, I think it could be possible to still work to apply for the job training grantee. I would just reach out to your EPA regional staff. If you're in Region 9, then that would be me or Daniel Mower, and we're the job training leads in this region. And we can answer in a little bit more detail if you just send one of us an email. Yeah, or we can meet with you one-on-one as well.
Thanks, Jackie. And thank you, Tamara and Denise, for your time today. This has been really informative. We will be in touch with you all. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you learned something. I hope you got inspired and are excited about this opportunity. We will be in touch, and I hope everyone has a great rest of their Monday and a wonderful week.